All right.
It's a little
Jump has got to start. People are dragging butt.
You heard me talk about the fact that Lee got up early in the morning, rode down to Longstreet's headquarters in Pinter's Woods, expected to see George Pickett's division on the field. Did not. What he encountered was General Longstreet. General Longstreet said to him, General Lee, I've had my scouts out all night. We can go around that big mountain. That is not what Lee wanted to hear again. He probably was more than irritated by that point by it. Well, here they are. It's about 4:30, and all of a sudden the cannon erupt along Baltimore Pike and Powers Hill, and the Copp's Hill fight, which was supposed to be simultaneous with the attack against the left wing of the Federal Army, is underway. So Lee is faced with a decision about what he wants to do. What should he do? So it'll take morning, and he will ride with Longstreet. They're going to examine the Federal lines, but increasingly as it goes through, Lee decides to attack the Federal center. That's what he's looking at. So he and Longstreet discuss it. You're well aware of what happens. But I would add the point, we'll talk to why they did who they did, and particularly Pettigrew in that. But at one point, as you well know, Longstreet turned to him and said, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, generally, I've been a soldier all my life. I commanded companies, regiments, and no 15,000 men ever arranged for battle to take that position. To me, those are the words that have continued up until today to haunt Confederate. Gettysburg is the if of the Confederate history. If this, Faulkner thought it was right at one point in his writing, then Longstreet's words are the ones that go against that. He finally decides, and what's the best, and again I told you, contemporary evidence of the high command of the Confederate Army is not here for July the 3rd. Why Heath's division, or Pettigrew's division, as Heath is still incapacitated by being hit in the head. You know, the newspaper saved his life on July the 1st. They're here. They're here. So he needed to support troops for it. What he also decides to do is to take 2 brigades from Penner's division, and you can see them. They're lean. Lawrence's is Scales' division, brigade. Scales' brigade was shot up very badly on the attack of July 1st against Seminary Ridge. Remember, they don't take it. It's Perrin's brigade that's going to break through. Lane's has been rather unscathed. The rest of Marshall is commanding, as you see there, Pettigrew's brigade, as Pettigrew is now division commander. Longstreet is going to confer with all of them. Trimble, who's a supernumerary, and by the way, I will tell you something right now. If you remember from the movie and all that and other writings, Trimble is talking to Lee, and Lee points to a map about 3 days before Gettysburg and says, this is where the battle's going to be. I think Trimble made that up to make himself important. I doubt whether Lee would tell Isaac Trimble that, and he wouldn't tell anybody else that. So, but anyhow, so to do something with Trimble, why not let him oversee these 2 brigades? His experience. He's a good combat soldier, badly wounded, of course, at Groveton. Now, I can't tell you why that these 2 brigades are over here, and they're not over here behind Brockenbarrow and Davis, where they should be to protect the flank and to give support to that flank. Brockenbarrow's brigade is already under strength before July 1st. It's even worse. What's going to happen is only about half of them are really going to go anywhere as they start moving down here. Now, what is the plan? Is that the target? There's no writings at the time that says that the copse of trees. The target's Cemetery Ridge. Burke and Fry will ride afterwards, and it makes sense. And this is Burke and Fry here, the Alabamians that had been archers. And you can see even on the map it's shown. He said, my brigade was a brigade of direction. Well, why does that make sense? Because what does Pickett's division do? They oblique to the left to come into line with Pettigrew's flank. Here's the first fence that you can see running west to east. If you go in the distance on the other side of the tree line there, You'll see that next fence. We'll see it real well when we get to Virginia Monument. But if you follow that tree fence line, it's going to take you out, as you will see in the map, just near the copse of trees, right? And if he is a brigade of direction, that means the target is roughly in there. And that was what was decided upon. This attack, though, is predicated on the ability of the Army of Northern Virginia, with very fine gun crews, but with not an adequate ammunition, adequate number of long-range good cannons, but they're good gun crews, to silence the strongest arm of the Army of Potomac, and that's their artillery. Not only that, they're going to be opposing a man who, as Ed said, is the finest artillerist anywhere around, in Henry Jackson Hunt. If you want to create hell in the battlefield of the Civil War, let Henry Jackson Hunt do it for you, and he will do it for you, and he's going to do it here today. So the cannonade, and what Lee bases this on, is the fact that it has to knock out the Union cannon. That's why it's not, if you kill Yankee infantry, that's just a bonus. That wasn't the target of this cannonade, it's the artillery. It's based upon that because Lee wants them, they have to get there, and it's about 1,400 yards from here, and Pickett's division roughly going to cover about 1,400 yards. Also, they are going to make it in 19 minutes or less, or a little bit more, but roughly by counts and everything, about 19 minutes going to take it. So they have to get there, and they have to be shot to pieces by Union artillery. That's the problem with it. And the other problem, of course, is, I'm sure, but Porter Alexander will write later that the greatest compliment Lee ever paid his army was July 3rd. It's his sense of invincibility. Even Lee, when in his report, if you remember, he said that maybe more was expected of them than they could, valor and courage, prowess could deliver. If you stand here and look across that, and I took teenagers out there all the time, and the first word out of their mouth was, Lee's stupid. Well, teenagers, that's a common expression for anybody older. But that can't be. And the other thing you got to think about is he rides out here and looks across it. Robert E. Lee does not believe they can't do it? Well, of course not. He has to believe. He wouldn't give that order, would he? So there you are. Now, the other thing about it, Richard Anderson's division is added to this attack force. So Longstreet's going to command 14 brigades, not just these 6 and Pickett's 3. So he can call upon the 5 brigades of Anderson's division to join in the assault. When he does it, that's a sort of source of controversy as the attack goes through. But Pettigrew's men, followed by Trimble's men, are going to march right where we're standing. Fry's men will be on that along that fence there, and they're going to extend up through here to roughly where you see the houses. From this side of the houses, you're going to see them. If you ever walked it up here, it's even more convoluted. When you get past that's where the Bliss farm was, and that was burned about noon. So there's a pall of smoke hanging over this battle. That barn was big, and they burned the barn in the house. So there's a pall of smoke hanging on this battlefield already in this area before the cannonade even begins. But there's an area down there, you get down there where you're looking at you're in a ravine, and you don't see anything. It's even deeper than what we're going to walk later on. But this is the area they're going to go forward. Any questions? I wish I could answer or tell you other things, but frankly, anybody talk about defenses? Can't find any account anybody was concerned about defenses. Many of these would have been knocked down earlier in going back and forth, but a lot of them still, they'd have to go. There were no pioneers that I know of assigned to go ahead and knock down defenses as they're moving forward. Kemper's men are going to have a little bit better because they're roughly from the Gadori house down. Remember I told you in July the 1st he made gaps. on the flying July 2nd where those fences were knocked down. But you get from the Kadori House and Barn North up along here, most of those fences remained in place. And they're 5 rails high, and the visitor center used to have one of them on display, and I think they counted 850 or 60 bullet holes in that 16-foot rail. So, any questions about this?
Any questions? We'll bring up later, we're going to have that some of the Yankee generals are going to fight among themselves. Henry Jackson Hunt and Hancock will battle until Hancock dies first on how Hunt uses the artillery. Hunt wants them to preserve artillery. He wants the Union guns, which he has. He is chief of artillery. He wants his guns to fire 1 shot every 2 minutes. Hancock, who's an infantryman, controls the artillery of Hazard in the 2nd Corps. And he's going to tell Hazard, I want you to fire as fast as you can. I don't give a damn for what Henry Hunt told you, 1 round every 2 minutes. Because he wants his infantry to know that Hazard is firing back, and they'll have almost as vicious battle of letters as the Meade followers and the Sickles followers will have. It'll continue until Hancock dies. Hunt will argue in his letters that not a Confederate would have got across the Emmitsburg Road if Hancock had listened to it.
By the way, the cannonade, I don't know, I guess we'll do there briefly. I'm of the school that ended about 2 o'clock. If you look at Porter Alexander's notes in the time frame, they didn't have the ammunition to fire an extended cannonade in 2 hours. If you're lying on there, one soldier wrote, the end said, I was hungry and I was glad for it because his stomach is empty, that many could get closer to the ground. You know, as he's under that bombardment.
And most of the artillerymen that are the best informed saying about 75 minutes or
yeah,
something.
it's very
not this barony of 2 hours.
And either damaged, pulled out of line, ammunition going in the Federal line, roughly 120 cannon, they pull out 35. In the next 20 minutes or so before the Confederate infantry will start to move forward, and he had made these arrangements ahead of time because Hunt's one of those guys, when he saw the row of cannons going out through there that morning, he said, Lee's going to attack, and someone said, oh no, that's the cover of retreat. In those 20 minutes, he replaced them with 41. So the cannonade as such, for what Lee intended it to do, failed. And as soon as they appear, either Pickett's men or Pettigrew's, that they are going to be hammered. I'll give you the quote right now. A soldier in Armstead's brigade, remember they're behind Garnett, he will write on, I think, July the 14th, he's a farm boy, he said, arms and legs flew in the air like feathers before the wind. Yeah. That's how they were getting cut. And there's Rittenhouse's battery in Little Round Top, 6 guns now, firing down. So if you fire short or fire long, particularly in the Kemper and Garnett and Armstead, you're going to hit somebody. And they would make gaps, literally. And Hutton said, when the shells, you run out of shells, you fire solid shots and you fire it along the ground like a bowling ball. And you knock them over that way.
One other thing I want to add, Osborne, the chief of the artillery on the 12th Corps, mainly on a cemetery hill, will say to Henry Hunt, as he remembers it, much in the words of Henry Hunt. He says, I think we ought to quit firing. I think we want to invite them to come on.
And they believe that, remember Alexander's last note about the 18 guns that gone sound? He thought that possibly they knocked him out. It was Osborne shutting down the fire. You can understand why it was misinterpreted. They said the gun crews looked like specters in hell. You know, with the flame flashing out, the smoke, all there's counts of that, and how they pictured them, these gun crews. I think they do a wonderful job in the movie Gettysburg.
My feeling is that was probably the best thing they do when you get the movie.
Oh, it is?
On the uses and how they depict the artillery.
Yeah.
When and why in popular history does it become just Pickett's charge?
About 2 weeks after the battle.
What happened at Pettigrew and Trimble?
Well, the Richmond press controlled it.
They control it.
And they wrote about it.
And what they say, on the 15th, this attack would have succeeded, but for those
Oh, that's it. Oh, yeah. No, it was the Richmond press. Ed's right. It was the Richmond press. Well, you know, and so every other set of newspapers, you know, they would pick up the story from Richmond, and it was all about these Virginians and the cowardly North Carolinians.
Okay, let's get aboard the bus.
More rain is coming.
Porter Alexander is only in command of the 1st Corps Artillery. He has no authority over R. Reuben Lindsay Walker, which is the 3rd Corps Artillery, nor any control over 2nd Corps Artillery. So that's going to be one thing you have to remember. Now, Hunt is the czar of the Union artillery, but not in the 2nd Corps. And they're going to fight, Hunt and Hancock are going to fight till Hancock is dead. Because Hunt's going to outlive him. That's how you win an argument. But if Hancock hadn't mucked up the situation with on ordering Hazard Stevens to continue firing, the Confederates would not have got across the Emmitsburg Road. That's sure. Now, his orders are to the guys, except for it doesn't have any effect on the 2nd Corps, is he wants each gun to fire 1 shot every 2 minutes. It's going to be aimed and controlled. They're going to particularly reserve their anti-personnel weapons until the Confederates get in close. That would be the canister, and the spherical case will be reserved until the Confederates get close. The Union infantry will not do any firing, at least along the 2nd Corps line, until the Confederates cross the Emmitsburg Road, the small arms fire. That's the thing to remember. And we've got Porter Alexander standing next to me, and Longstreet. Now Lee is going to give a order, and Longstreet is going to delegate the order. And I'm sure Jeffrey will go into it where you're kind of putting, because the Confederates are going to have 1 out. And Jeffrey will go into the 1 out the Confederates are going to have, that the attack is going to do. Now remember, the worst artilleryman in the field is William Nelson Petalin. Petalin, it would not have done any good, in my opinion. I don't think it will in yours. Petalin is supposed to advance 12 light howitzer guns with the attacking force. And they're going to advance with the attacking force up to the Emmitsburg Road. They're then going to unnumber their guns and give the Confederates some close support with these 12-pounder howitzers firing canister. And either Petalin forgot to do it, or he screwed it up, and these 12 guns will not go forward with them. So they're going to thing, but Jeffrey will discuss with you they're out. And Lee is going to agree to this, and we're going to find out that Longstreet's going to delegate it to Porter Alexander, which really puts Porter Alexander making even more important than just commanding the 1st Corps artillery.
Yeah. What Longstreet will call this saddest day of my life. Now, remember, in the winter of '62, he lost 3 children in the span of 10 days. And he said, never was I so depressed. And his mood got no better as the morning lengthened towards the afternoon. And in the conferences with Lee and that, he sort of got Lee to agree to the fact, well, what if this artillery cannonade is not effective? Then what? So, you know, it was contingent upon whether or not the artillery cannonade would be effective. So he sent Alexander a note. And Longstreet decided, well, here I can pass the buck. And he sent Alexander a note basically saying, if you determine that the artillery fire is not ineffective, we will not go forward. Now I'm paraphrasing, but not quite in those words. Alexander was too smart for that. He read that note, and he knew what Longstreet was doing. And Longstreet should not have done this. Both of them had a great mutual respect for each other. In fact, they had a warm respect Alexander had for Longstreet. Respected him very much. But he is a colonel. He is not going to take responsibility for a 12 to 13,000 man infantry attack upon his shoulders. So what he does is he writes back to Longstreet and said, all I can do is tell you when the fire is the most effective, when you should advance. And then Longstreet probably realized what he had done, and you know he is going to take responsibility. He sent another note to Alexander, said, let me know when that time is. And of course that's what Alexander's going to do. When it occurs, and Alexander sends a note, as Ed pointed out, those Cemetery Hill up there, when those 18 guns go silent, that's the note he writes, that 18 guns of the enemy is going silent is the best time to advance. Pickett will come and join him. Also, by the way, he does send a courier or an aide, but I think it's more a courier, to Pettigrew ordering him to advance. It isn't that Pettigrew had to look across here, as Ed said. It wouldn't have done him much good to look across here to see when Pickett was going to advance. And so Pickett rides up to Longstreet. This is pure guess, based upon a couple things. But that famous encounter between Longstreet and Pickett probably occurred behind us in this part of the woods. I may be wrong in that, but and the reason I'm telling you that is when it is over, after Longstreet nods, and by the way, you do know that George Pickett did not take time to write to LaSalle and say, if old Pete nod means my death, blah, blah, blah. She made that letter up after the war.
He's very good at writing letters.
Yes.
I would have never married her. A woman that goes and says I wrote a letter to her that tramp, tramp, tramp is thought of you as you march northward.
Yeah, I know. But it was bought, you know. Well, yeah, he wrote it. You know, it was a long time. But anyways, Pickett rides out. You know, they're going to go down to form the men up to begin it. At this time, Kemper's brigade is going to be to the east of the Spangler House. It's going to be on the other side of Spangler House this way. If you look up there, the fence row along there, you can see it there, that fence. That's basically where Garnett's brigade was. Armstead's is back here, maybe a regiment or so even in the woods, but they're in the swale of this, 200 or so yards or more behind. As they advance, they'll be roughly about 200 yards apart. Longstreet, once he orders Pickett to advance, he mounts up, rides out, and by all accounts, he comes to Alexander, and he says to Alexander, I never wanted to make this attack, but General Lee ordered it. Alexander will write subsequently, he was feeling pretty good about the whole attack, the whole plan. The reason he was feeling pretty good about the whole plan was because General Lee ordered it. So if General Lee ordered it, it had to be a good plan. And he said later, when General Longstreet told me I didn't want to make this attack, he said, I got suddenly depressed because there's something maybe wrong with this. What Longstreet does then is somewhere, and more likely, this would be the best guess, and that's Edmund know differently, and I would defer. He comes out and sits on a fence. Fremantle comes up to him, says, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Longstreet said, I would. You know, those words to those effect. So why I'm saying that more than likely the Pickett Longstreet thing, anywhere more towards this end of the Spangler Woods than that end because of him riding out. It makes logical sense. He could have went the whole way out to that fence, but it seems he was more here, but I couldn't, but he rode out enough so he could see across well enough. He wouldn't have sat back down here. He couldn't see anything. And so then they will stand up and they will begin to march out.
The only thing to add is that, again, remember the old recording they had in there, commanding 15 Virginia regiments, the very flower of Lee's army. Now, Pickett had not had much experience leading a large number of men. Pickett, as a brigade commander, had been wounded at the Battle of Gaines' Mill on the 27th day of June. He did not return. He missed Antietam and did not return to the army until the eve of Fredericksburg. Longstreet's two divisions of Longstreet's command don't do a lot of killing of Yankees at the Battle of Fredericksburg because they're in reserve. The people that are going to kill the Yankees there are going to be McLaws and Ramseur's divisions. Pickett is not present at Chancellorsville. So he's had relatively no experience leading a large number of men into battle. Also his division is, if you're going to give it a combat efficiency rating, it would rate in the lower third, if not in the lower quarter of the caliber of combat efficiency in the rebel army. That doesn't make them the flower of Lee's army by a damn sight. And we got to remember the Armstead and Garnett should not have gone into action today. He has a bad fever. He's going. He has a fever of around 200, around 102, 103. He's wearing a heavy coat. Why is he doing it? Because he is trying to prove something. Because Thomas Jonathan Jackson had brought charges against him, and in Garnett's mind, when they have the hearing there, that Jackson is just about as good a witness, a witness in his favor as is General Sheridan in the court of inquiry of General Warren. And he's just about as even Bob Brick will say, Garnett is right, as he writes in these notes in the hearing. They'll never reconvene again after the 8th of June. Lie, saying that Jackson is speaking with forked tongue at that. So everybody's going in, and there are at least 22 officers that are going in mounted. He is not going to be the only one mounted, Garnett. And when they're going to move out, there's no reason to doubt that Pickett is going to be like the eternal sophomore, which he is. And he's going to give an order standing between Garnett, in front of Garnett, on Garnett's right, and on Kemper's left. And since Armstead is back in the swale, and he'll say something like this: "Men of old Virginia, prepare to charge the enemy. Guide center, quick time, forward march," which means they're going to move out of here at 80 steps a minute when they come out of here, and they're going to oblique. They're going out here generally. If you're the leftmost man in Garnett's brigade, you're going to be more or less guiding on this fence. And you're not going to change your direction till you get up to that cross fence, and you start out, and then you're going to do a left oblique because they want Garnett's left to be in contact with Fry's right, when they cross the Emmitsburg Road. So this again is going into situation. We know that these batteries that have been withdrawn, these 18 guns, have all been replaced.
Ed just brought up something. There was a rumor that went around the Army after Gaines Mill that when Pickett was wounded, that he wasn't behind a big enough tree. No, they thought there was a question about his bravery. But please keep in mind that he is Longstreet's. He owes everything to Longstreet.
He's a protege.
Yeah.
When Longstreet is wounded at the attack on Chapultepec Castle, who does he hand the colors of the 8th Virginia to? George E. Pickett. And he will plant the colors of the 8th U.S. Infantry over the battlements of Chapultepec Castle. Longstreet is a protege man. Because he's going to be, Micah Jenkins will succeed Pickett as Longstreet's protege. And of course, they'll have something in common. Because one will get killed and the other badly wounded. Now, Longstreet's going to have a far worse wound than Jackson.
Oh, yeah. In fact,
if he didn't have a strong physique, he would have died. What does a bullet do? It goes over, it strikes him in the, he's shot by a Virginian, not a North Carolinian, and it's going into, hit him in the back, strike his clavicle, and emerges from, and shot in the right shoulder. It's going to emerge from his Adam's apple area, and it's going to cut the nerves in his right hand, which means that Longstreet, when he wants to respond to the slings and arrows of his producer, is not going to be able to write very well, because he never learns to write well with his left hand.
And the irony of it is he's on his deathbed. Right before he dies, the old wound opens up and pours out blood and stuff. So he's hampered with it all.
So we're going to follow as much as we can. The route we're following in the footsteps of Garnett's left guide, which is going to move out along this fence. And when we get beyond that that cross fence, he's going to oblique to the left, which is going to be bad if you look where Rittenhouse's guns are. A little roundout. Because when he obliques, they're going to be able to deliver a fire down his front.
One more thing. Once they open up the cannon, you know the Federals reply. And as they're replying, and they're going to cause casualties. We don't know how many. You know, some guys, I think, decide to fake it or whatever. You can't blame them. But anyways, as they're firing back in the cannon, James Longstreet, and this is his attack, he will mount on his horse, and he will ride the length of Pickett's division and out through here. And Kemper later wrote, "It's the greatest moral spectacle I saw of the war for courage." He walked his horses, he said, an old farmer going to his fields. Longstreet did that to, give the men courage and bravery, and he was through unscathed. But
the other thing to remember as we walk, right now, what Union guns can fire on us? Rittenhouse can fire on him. He's got 4 guns on Little Round now. He's taken over. He's taken over the 4th U.S. None of Freeman, none of the guns along the Hancock Avenue can fire on us right now. But they're going to be able to fire on us when we go over that ridge. Right now, the Union guns up there at the angle can fire on us. The Union guns there around the Bryan House could fire on us. And if those trees were removed, the guns on Cemetery Hill can fire on us, because you're going to be some places you're going to be indefinitely, because you had to fire line of sight. You did not fire indirect fire in the Civil War.
About 120 guns altogether.
All right, we're ready to. Any questions?
Was Henry Hunt in charge of the artillery other than the Second Corps? Or did they each corps?
Hunt is in charge. Every chief of artillery of each of the corps
Okay.
listens to Henry Hunt,
Except for Hancock.
except
Okay.
Hazard Stevens,
Okay.
who is taking his orders from
Hancock.
Hancock.
Taking abuse from Hancock.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Hancock is
probably-
an infantryman. He doesn't care about this baloney of 2 minutes. He likes his infantry to know that his guns are firing.
Stevens probably learned some new words that day.
As you could, Stevens is caught between two.
Oh no, 11th did for a while too. Osborne on the Cemetery Hill, but he's the one that didn't
You
sound.
don't want to be caught between two strong-willed men, because you ain't going to win any friends.
What was the rationale about firing once every 2 minutes?
Save your ammunition for the survey.
Conserve
I made the
ammunition.
decision the infantry's coming. The Confederate infantry's coming. Lee wouldn't do this, so we got to save our long-range ammunition to hit them as soon as they come.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Any other questions?
Confederate ammunition?
What?
Isn't there a problem with Confederate ammunition?
Yeah, we know from Joe Gladhar's book what happened. You know, that fire explosion in March of '63, where they made the fuses in Richmond. So they got a shipment in from Charleston, South Carolina, before the campaign began. They didn't have time to test them. That fall, the Ordnance Bureau tested them. What were they? Half a second or so
Yeah.
slower. So that accounts for the overshots. You know, the guys were doing it based upon experience with the Richmond fuses. These were burned a half a second or so slower. That's why you. But also, as Porter Alexander said, this is a terrible target.
Yeah.
It's just this. You're going to try to hit this, and that was the other problem too. It was so narrow a target to hit.
Any questions? We better move off. We've got an hour and 15 minutes. Because we want to get over in position.
I believe in his memoirs he
Did Pettigrew
said
leave the same time? I wasn't
Yeah,
sure exactly.
I believe in his memoirs he said after the fact that he thought that he should have come up front there and fired down the line, didn't he? Porter Alexander.
Well, they were actually firing from Oak Hill during the cannonade, but a lot of these guns had the back, but they were firing from even Oak Hill.
Oh, really?
About 164, 60. The counts are unclear because we're not with real certainty. Did two of these guns of this battery fire or not? You know, and
Yeah, right.
I put the number 164. Others have put it a little bit lower. Others, historians have put it a little bit higher. But yeah, they were firing from Oak Hill.
So they would be in the cannon fire now.
Yes. Oh yeah. As soon as they were able to be seen. And Federal's right aside, particularly Garnet and Kemper, and then Armstead, it looked like it just rose out of the ground. And it would seem that way, you know.
And then tell us how far Pettigrew goes, or not Pettigrew.
Huh?
Pickett. Tell us how far Pickett comes out.
Well, I think Pickett goes the whole way to Emmitsburg Road.
Okay, wow. And here he
And
gets knocked
probably at Marshall, south of the Cadore barns would make the most sense. You don't want to be around the Cadore barn and house because you can't see anything. And I don't think he was up to the left of it. I think he was south of it where Kemper. Because see, Kemper's going to cross here by the Klingel farm and Rogers' house, and he's going to be on both sides of Emmitsburg Road here because of the left oblique.
So that's far down.
Yes.
Those men, and all they have, when they start falling back, they come back at the same time, roughly?
You mean right after they're repulsed?
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody falls back generally.
yeah. Well, some have been fleeing earlier, but as once the high water mark occurs, essentially the guys are already streaming rearward.
But they might be wounded too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They wouldn't carry their knapsack. Yeah. Well, about that
Garnett's brigade, I am 200 yards in front of Armstead's brigade right now. And we're going to be two ranks. My elbow is here. They're right behind me. Their elbow's there. And then there's the file closers behind them. The file closers are the sergeants and the lieutenants to make sure we go that way, not that way. Remember, the company commander is he. He's the right man in each company. So you're over there. You can't see what the men are doing because you're looking where you're going. That's why these file closers back here would be making sure we're doing what they want, making sure that what Jeff and I might be doing, heading that way.
At least one of us said.
So Garnett is to our right now. Right? Garnett's men are over here.
Yeah, I know. They're coming. Shot out over there at that fence. They're coming up with that.
And Jeff, we're in this swale. I remember those guys up there at the angle cannot fire. There are other people they can fire on, but they cannot fire on us. No, you can't see it. The thing is, if you can't see them, they can't see you. Because you do not have indirect fire in a civil war.
Oh yeah, artillery. Tanks up in front of you.
You have to see
And
your
by the time you got over the crest, there might not be anything through there. And just was convinced.
The people way up in front are pleased if they're Chicago Round Table. The people that are hitting that cross fence, please stop. The Chicago Round Table people in front of the stop when you get to that cross fence. Well, if you got 1,000 men, let's make it easy. If I've got 500, 200 men, there are going to be 200 men, elbow touching elbow. Yours and have one yard behind them, you're going to have another. Under the fire of Freeman McGilvery's command. They're running along that ridge from the area of the Vermont marker all the way south of the New York Monument. It's going to be McGilvery. Now you're under fire from McGilvery now. He hasn't been able to fire on us till we've reached this point. You can't even fire one round every 2 minutes till we reach this point. Now what we're going to do, we're going to oblique to the left. Because remember, when you cross the Emmitsburg Road, then you want the left of Garnett. be touching the right of Perfect Rock. All right. See where Gary Augustine is? I wish you would pour a laundry bag. He's he has my description of him when he puts on his rain case. And I won't mention it out loud. All right, we're under fire now for the people in the angle. Now the best thing that's coming, who's been able to fire down our line of advance? The guy up there written out. See, little round top? He has the best position, and he has rifle guns. And he'll be firing only explosive shell at us.
Only?
Can they cover that for us? Rifle guns? Miles. Some little rounds out here. Miles.
Now we're changing direction. We're going that way. Why are we going this way? Because we're heading toward the aiming point for the attack. The aiming point of our attack is going to be that single tree up there at the angle. So if you're the guide man here, the left guide, he's looking at that.
Did they wait that long to oblique?
They're going to oblique right in this area. Why? Because they're going to soon be out of the range of McGilvery's gun.
And they want to make it seem like they're attacking the whole arm.
And they've got to start closing to the left.
Right.
Because Pettigrew is going almost in a straight line. We're going to be moving at least 400 yards further than Pettigrew will.
And why will we be out of range of those guns?
We're not out of range. We're in range of the. Now the Union have different type of projectiles. We're out of canister range.
Right.
We're within range of spherical case. We're in range of solid shot and explosive shell. But we're not in range of canister, which is the most effective anti-personnel.
Right. But the guys right here, aren't they enfilading fire?
Right now, McGilvery's men could be giving an enfilade fire. Remember, Rittenhouse has rifle guns. He's enflading us right now.
Can we go back?
What?
Can we go back? I don't want to.
You can go back and some big sergeant's going to kick you in the ass. Or if you're going to continue to do it, he's going to plug you with a musket. And so your NCOs and your lieutenants are the file folks. Because the captain is the right man and knows something. He's something. Company commander has to look at it like this. He can't be marching around like this. And the file well, they're not going to have large numbers of going back until they hit the Emmitsburg road. Right now, those Yankees up there in the angle, can't see us. But we're now catching still from McGilvery. But when we get up here very shortly into the Midori Orchard, we're going to be screwed. Now going to this swale on the other side of Emmitsburg Road, is Kemper's brigade. But he's now changed his direction. And he changes direction when he goes by the window house. Right now, we cannot say Pickett. He's off that way. We cannot say it.
What?
Because of the terrain. We're not Clark Kent. We can't look through terrain.
Was the Emmitsburg Road compressed?
Emmitsburg Road is right now. The Emmitsburg Road is higher than Cemetery Ridge.
Right, but when they went over the fence, they go down into the road and then they have
Down into the road.
yeah, so it's really kind of like a sunken road.
Not
quite that deep.
Not that deep.
Kemper's still on this side of the road.
What's that?
Kemper is still on this side of the
Kemper, no, Kemper is on that side of the Emmitsburg Road now.
Okay.
He's already crossed.
An hour and a half.
Is he taking back the fires?
He's under fire.
It was Scott Hartwig.
Across the Emmitsburg Road.
Peter Farrell.
Other considerations.
Military? Yeah, that's how we do the military.
Meanwhile, we're protected for a while.
Watch the groundhog holes. We just saw the groundhog holes to watch it. You don't, or you may push the ankle or worse.
Are we still being shot at from Little Round House?
Can you see it?
As long as I
As long as you can see it, you can get
As long as you can see Little Round Top, he can see
he
you.
keeps moving the guns.
You see your.
If you can see a gun, he's shooting at you.
Yeah.
Think of it that way.
Okay, so once we get by,
Now I know why the Kadori barn was so popular.
That was smaller then. It's only one story.
Oh, okay. When you reach the Emmitsburg Road, you're going to run into deep shit.
No, there might have been south of this, down on there, but up here, from here the whole way up to where Pettigrew had to cross it rough.
Down there, you're putting this smaller.
Oh no.
We're not going to cross
The
the
orders
Emmitsburg.
were-
There's one of the, during the bombardment, the sergeant in Brown's battery will have his right arm torn off. He will get up, bleeding profusely, and shake his fist. Glory, glory, hallelujah, I die happy. And he'll collapse. This is during the bombardment. This battery will be silenced on the 3rd. This is one of the 18 guns. These are where 6 of the 18 guns are withdrawn. And they're going to be replaced by Collins guns. See Collins guns? I can count 1, 2, 3, so 5 altogether. So they have replaced Brown's battery, which is withdrawn during the bombardment. One of those, they have withdrawn 18 guns. Come now, or I cannot support you. But they've been replaced by 6 rifle guns, which of course is not as good with canister but they're damn good with spherical case. And that's what they'll be using on the Confederates as they close up. Now again, we get a better view of where the Vermonters come out. See Standard's monument? That's General Standard. So 2 of his regiments will do the same as the 2 New York regiments. 125th and 126th will come out and form. So you're going to have, as the Confederates cross the Emmitsburg Road, not only do they have cannons in front of them, they're going to have small arms fire to both flanks. So they're going to be in the same situation the Light Brigade is. And they've lost their cohesion. When they crossed the Emmitsburg Road, what had been any semblance of the line of battle has become an armed mob. And they're moving toward the area there held by the 69th New York, Pennsylvania, and the 72nd Pennsylvania, 71st Pennsylvania. The angle is held by the 71st Pennsylvania. So that means that we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. Now, Kemper's men coming from that way, remember, they obliqued at the Klingel House. You see the Klingel House? They've obliqued and have moved across these fields here, and Kemper and his men are going to cross this fence line in this area. Hardly do they get across the fence, and they receive small arms fire. Kemper is mounted. As he sees the Union troops coming out and forming, remember when they move out, they are perpendicular to the Union line, those 2 Vermont regiments. And Kemper sees them, and he tries to signal to the noise and everything for his men to look to the right, look to the right. As he does that, a bullet is going to hit him around the belt and lodge against his spine. He will be captured, although he be governor of Virginia later, he will never walk without crutches again in the rest of his natural life. So he's going to be, when you were in the museum when we were in Schmucker Hall, we have some of his coats. Remember, he was one of the 3 Confederate generals there at Schmucker Hall. There is Kemper, there's Trimble, and they have some of the statements by them, as you saw when you went to the hospital section of the Schmucker Hall, which is on the 2nd floor, because they're going to make statements about what has happened, how they're being treated in the hospital, and such. Any questions? Anything to add, Jeffrey?
No, not really. The only thing, a couple notable things in the sense of we have personal interest. You know, they're going to shout Fredericksburg when it's over, but they also were shouting Fredericksburg once the Confederate infantry started to appear in advance. And then one guy in Hayes' division up there on the inner stone wall, he stands up and the counts are very clear and he says, come on, come to death. And he just waves them on. You know, they're just waiting on him. So you should, this is redemption for these boys. Remember, these are the ones that went into the West Woods, right? Got slaughtered. This is old John Sedgwick's boys and stuff.
And again, what's going to happen is that Alexander Hayes, this is after the Repulse, Alexander Hayes' men will be fleet of foot. They'll dash out in front of where the men of Webb's brigade are, and they'll start. And Webb will protest. We should have those flags. Now, what he's doing is dragging behind his horse Confederate flags, and whatever the horse deposits, they'll be dragged through it. So Webb goes out and protests. And Hayes is going to say, well, we have those weapon flags, but there are lots of them. Here's a few for you people. He's very patronizing to him and rather generous. But that's again, they're going to capture around 22, 23 of Confederate flags.
The only counties you saw where Pickett's men carried Virginia state flags. They did not carry Virginia state flags. They carried Confederate battle flags of the Army of Northern Virginia with St. Andrew's crosses. And many of them were, yes.
All right, we'll go on up and we'll stop at the regular movie. The movie loves General Hancock. The only guy that plays Hancock isn't 6'2". He doesn't have a loud voice. And you can't even tell if he has a white shirt on or not. And you may remember that Hancock rides back and forth along the front of the 2nd Corps. Out in front of him is Lieutenant West with the Corps flag. And Ken will play General Doubleday. And Doubleday will go up and remark to Hancock, General, you're endangered yourself. And Hancock will speak, Ken playing Doubleday. Doesn't have much resemblance to Doubleday. Ken's a nice guy, but doesn't have a very loud, raucous voice. And Hancock will reply, Generals, Corps commanders are expendable. He'll continue to do it. And a bullet is going to crash through the pommel of his saddle. As he's endowed and sitting his horse, looking that way. Going to rip through the pommel of his saddle. He has a big problem of heavy hips. Well, I should say heavy thighs. And that bullet will rip through his 7 inches. Shows he should be taking one of those exercises they advertise in the morning. Because it's going through 6 inches of flesh and lodge against his tailbone. Well, when he's helped off the horse, gets to recover a little bit, realizes the Union are doing well, will reach into his wound and grab a nail. In building saddles, they use nails to secure the leather to the wooden frame. Pulls it out, looks at it, flips it aside, and says the Confederates are in a bad way. They're firing rusty nails. Our last stop here, when we talk about Armstead's death, Hancock is going to be down where we see that monument. You still see that single monument stand. And he's going to send Earl Bingham staff, because the rumors are that they've captured General Longstreet. So he's going to send Bingham to find out if it's true that they've captured General Longstreet. He's going to find out it ain't true. He's going to find out it's Armstead, who is not General Longstreet. Any questions? All right, this is a Union defense line.
Alonzo Cushing, where was he?
We'll be with him shortly.
Oh, good. Okay.
And we'll you imitate him, because he's going to be shot in the mouth.
Get the marshal.
His masculinity was destroyed.
No.
The bullet killed him. All right, you're in this Union position. We're in a position held by one of the brigades of go along their line here. We're very proud of it. We're gonna pile up earth here, some fence rails and stuff. And this is the Confederate main line of resistance. Remember, who crossed this line on the evening of the 2nd was General Wright.
Right.
All right, let's move up here. Now this is the monument to the 20th. This is a Democratic record. They don't like those posts in the 2nd Massachusetts. They're all Republicans. This is a Democratic record. Oliver Hammer Holmes' best friend.
Oh yeah.
Say, we don't like Charles. We don't like Abraham Lincoln. We wish to hell little George still. So they are a Democratic regiment. And this type of stone is known as a pudding stone. We come from the part from the Cape Cod area where many of the 20th Massachusetts. And they'll catch them with a storm of spherical cakes. And the 14th Virginia will be virtually annihilated. And they will never reach the battery of Collins Battery. Now we're going into the 69th Pennsylvania. We know a great deal about that because they write a lot. It's an Irish regiment. Its colonel is Colonel Dennis O'Kane, an Irish bartender. From Philadelphia, the major is Major Shreddy, who, like Marshal Koenig, is a lawyer. And they're going to mark out where every regiment is, every company is. And they're going to lay down. O'Kane has evidently read Longfellow's Ride with Paul Revere, because he's going to use a phrase out of the poem about the Ride of Paul Revere. So, lying behind the stone wall is the 59th Pennsylvania. Some of them, if they're real ambitious, are going to collect all the rifle muskets they can find that have been abandoned on the evening of the 2nd. They're going to have 3 or 4 loaded muskets. This guy is kind of a slug.
You betcha.
He's only going to have his. And what he's going to say, he's evidently read Paul Revere. He's kind of a poetic Irish bartender. And he's going to tell his men when he calls them to attention, don't fire until you can see the whites of their eyes. The command that Dr. Warren, the commander of the Americans at Breed's Hill, will say. And they'll open fire on them. Now they're going to have a moment when their right wing is going to collapse and pull back into the copse of trees. That's going to be the men to the right, to the color company. Because what's going to happen, the rebels are going to cross the wall. All right, we're still along the line
if we're going to have
of the
59.
59 Pennsylvania. These men are going to fall back into the area where we see the copse of trees and where we see the Gettysburg courthouse. We'll talk about this monument later. The most photographed monument at Gettysburg. In 77 Pennsylvania, there is a Zouave regiment. That means that Nancy would like them, but they wear fancy red bloomers. Leggings, and such. But more about them. Now, as we arrive in this area here, Cushing has still 2 guns in action. Does we have a man who likes Cushing? The gun that he is manning is that gun there, about 25 yards from us. See that single gun with a monument in front of it? That's where Cushing is. He's going to be wounded 5 times. The 5th one sends him to heaven or hell. And it's going in his open mouth. When he yells, double charger canister, fire! It goes in his mouth. But he's already been wounded in the fleshy part of the legs and in the groin. We don't know if it was if he had become, if it had rendered him impotent or not. No one's going to chuckle on that after he's dead. All right, they can see this mob of Confederates, men of Garnett, men of Armstead, and men of Alabamians and Tennessee. And as they see them closing up, they see a Confederate officer on a horse out there just beyond where he is. A shell will explode. The badly injured horse will come into the Union lines. The rider will not be identified. The rider undoubtedly is General Garnett. Because in the 1880s, a person will show up in the Baltimore pawn shop with his sword and rifle, with his sword and watch, and says, I want a loan. That indicates that the Yankees were souvenir hunters, and this fellow had made off with Garnett's watch and sword. He is undoubtedly one of those unknown Confederates buried in Hollywood Cemetery, where he has a memorial plaque. Now, when you see that happening, Armstead is going to push to the head. In some place in this area, first thing, the 71st Pennsylvania is going to fall out. They hold the section of the Union line from this area where I am now to the angle. That is the angle. And back 265 feet to where you have the second angle, where they turn left again. And they will pull out. And the Confederates, led by Armstead, men of Virginia, men of Alabama, and men of Tennessee will push ahead. They've lost all order as they push ahead with Armstead out in front. So we're going to emulate Armstead. Armstead is going to push ahead here. It seems that the Confederates fight against all odds, maybe might win. And they win. So that cannon at that time, rifle gun would be, as far as soldiers can remember, this position where we have this fight. This fight will be paid for by the United States. And here, Armstead's gun is placed, not up against the wall. He has been wounded 5 times. He's ordered double shots of canister, and as the Confederates close in, he's going to pull the lanyard. A bullet is going in his open mouth as he says fire, and he's dead. And we won't know if that bullet that hits him in the groin area has made him neutered him or not. We don't know that. But we know he takes 4 other wounds when they kill him. Here's where he falls. Armstead lays his hand on the gun. A gun like that would be positioned here. this monument is paid for by Confederates. But Confederate subscription was going to be by Union soldiers who were going to spend the money to buy this monument. But this is their high water mark. The Union are rallying. We have the 42nd New York down there where you see the teeth. There's no more Indian than I am. That's the logo used by Tammany Hall. Marshall Crowley, if he was alive at that day, would be a politician, a lawyer politician sitting in Tammany Hall. It would be a Democrat, of course. And that they would move in along with the 15th Massachusetts, the 20th Massachusetts, and they would charge in here. Now, the other unit that's ordered to charge is the 72nd Pennsylvania of Webb's Brigade. They are a Zouave regiment. They're ordered to charge. There is Alexander Webb, the brigade commander. He'll eventually be involved in the court-martial. He's a West Pointer, and he is ordered the 72nd Pennsylvania to go forward and drive the Confederates out. Their color bearer doesn't advance. And of course, Webb tries to take the flag away from the color bearer. The color bearer is stronger than Webb and holds on to the colors. Now, whether they ever go up there will be decided by law. It's going to be the 72nd Pennsylvania is going to hire Marshall Crowley, a lawyer, to represent them. And they're going to sue Batchelder and the commission. And they're going to argue we were up there. The case will go try to the Pennsylvania court, so they got a big advantage. The Pennsylvania court says yes, they advanced up there. Webb doesn't know what he's talking about when he says they won't advance. And that's why the monument is going to be positioned there and one of the most photographed monuments. And of course, we're going to finish up with one statement, one story. Now, Hancock has sent Colonel Bingham. Bingham is a Mason. He's sent up here because the reports have reached Longstreet that Longstreet has reached Hancock, that Longstreet is wounded and a prisoner. When Bingham gets up here, he finds it isn't Longstreet. It's Armstead that is wounded and a prisoner. Now, what happens next? There are going to be real problems. The Union and Bingham, who is a Mason, as was Armstead, is going to say that Armstead asks how is General Hancock? Bingham says he's wounded, but he will live. And Armstead is happy. Good. Then, as Bingham remembers it, one Mason to another, Armstead will then express regret of having taken up the sword against the old. That's going to cause the S to hit the fan. All Confederates are going to swear Armstead would have never said that. Is Bingham lying on a brother Mason? We don't know. We don't know. We can't ask Armstead because he's going to be dead in less than 24 hours. You can't go and say, Armstead, did you say what Bingham said you did? But you can't go asking that. And so that's a part of that's a part of Civil War legend. But the battle may have lasted too long in the movie Gettysburg. It's over in 5 minutes. The time the Confederates cross the stone wall until they're fleeing back is about 5 minutes. Meade will arrive after the repulse. Confederates will follow them across the Emmitsburg Road, but no further. When Meade arrives, he decides not to order a pursuit. When the Confederates go back to their lines, Lee will ride out to meet them. And we're going to turn it over to Jeffrey, because he isn't as wordy as I am, to discuss Lee when he greets the Confederates as they come back. Now, Pickett's problem is he is going to be not there to rally the troops, but we're going to let him have about 5 minutes, or maybe a few minutes longer, then we've got to get aboard the bus. So my friend Jeffrey is going to talk about the reaction of Lee when the troops come back and what it is.
One thing first to pick up on, Wilcox and Lang, you'll see in your map 22, they're going to advance south of the Cadore barn. Longstreet's going to order them in. He ordered them in too late to do any good. He may have ordered them in to protect himself, obeying Lee's orders. Remember, Lee will say to Bowdoin that night, according to Bowdoin, that I thought that there'd be more support or more men in the attack. He also readies the 300 brigades of Anderson's division. He cancels the order for their advance. If you read some of their letters, they are very thankful to old Pete because they're no fools. They're seeing what's going on. Lang and Wilcox will do all right till they get to that point where we were when McGilvery's batteries, 43 cannon, are just going to pound them on the other side of Emmitsburg Road as they come into view. The 14th Vermont's going to turn around. They're going to attack them. They're going to capture the flag of Second Florida. Alexander said that everyone should have been, they should have moved forward immediately after Pickett's division passed them. If you're going to support them, you got to come up right away. So as they're streaming back, retreating, you know where the Virginia Monument is. Just one soldier to keep in mind. His name is June Kimball. He would write about it. He's the 1st Tennessee. He's over here on the other side of the wall. June Kimball starts to retreat, and he starts to walk very fast, if not run. And all of a sudden, he remembered his pledge to his parents that if he died, he would be facing those Yankees. So he turned around and he retreated from Pickett's charge, walking backwards. Now, he wasn't stupid. He figured as soon as he got out of rifle range, in his calculation, he turned around and went the other way. So he's one of those. But most of them, by the way, Company B, 10th Maine, was the Provost Marshals. They counted, I think, 1,832 prisoners that they would count out of this attack that they all brought in. Lee rides out. You're all familiar with it. He meets some of the broken ranks, and he said, "It's my fault. It is my fault." And they say, "No, General. I know you saw the movie. You know that that's what happened."
That's got to be true.
Well, there is some indication. I don't know if it's exactly those words, but Lee did, talking to some of the men, take responsibility for what did happen. And it was his fault. He's the one that ordered this assault and never, frankly, had a chance. One thing I'll add to this, and then I'm going to shut up. During the morning, it's often forgotten, George Meade, Caldwell's division down here, for example, was one of them. He issued orders to roughly 13,500 men in different units to be prepared to move to any area of the line there might be a breakthrough. Had Pickett and Pettigrew broken through and those men obeyed the order, what they would have ran into was the vanguard of all those troops coming to plug this hole in the line. So, just telling you my opinion, this charge never had a chance. Never. There was no way, as Longstreet said, so many men is going to take that position. That's it.
With that, we'll get aboard the bus, and Jeff and I will